In this drive around, we will be visiting Strathmore, Alberta. Situated in one of Canada's sunniest regions, Strathmore is located along the Trans-Canada Highway, with quick access to other major transportation arteries such as Highway 817, Highway 2, and the Stoney Trail. The Calgary International Airport is about 35 minutes away, and the city centre is about the same. Now, Strathmore is growing very quickly. The population sits right now at 18,945. Strathmore is ranked 51st on the 2021 list of the best communities in Canada to live in. It kind of bases this on housing affordability, population growth, taxes, crime, weather, access to healthcare, amenities, and community engagement. Now, what is really interesting is the median household income is $90,000. That is 6,000 more than Toronto and 18,000 more than Vancouver. Now, what makes Strathmore very attractive is that housing costs and rental costs are pretty low. You can pick up a 3-bedroom fully renovated duplex with fully finished basement and garage for around 300,000. Now, we started our drive heading from Calgary into Strathmore. So this is the main thoroughfare. This is Highway 1, the Trans-Canada Highway that passes through Strathmore. Now, as you can see, there's a whole bunch of amenities. There's car dealerships, there's restaurants, there's gas stations. There's all kinds of stuff along this main thoroughfare to cater to tourists and those passing through. But Strathmore actually has a pretty old downtown. So we're going to take a look at that in just a few minutes. Now, on the right side, there is a Husky restaurant, and there's also some other restaurants around. There's an A&W, there's some family restaurants as well. They also have hotels and motels in this area, so if you're passing through or need to stay, there are those available. Now, as we go down these streets, a lot of Strathmore does have a very slow speed limit, about 30 to 40 kilometers per hour in most residential areas. So you got to take care. You got to slow down in this kind of rural town just east of Calgary. Now, as we pass this gas station, we'll be turning right. We'll be heading into the downtown area. Now, you'll notice there's some older houses in this area. Strathmore is a pretty old town. Most of the houses here have been built in the 1950s and 60s, but there is some really new developments as well. Now, most of these apartments that you can rent, you can get a 1-bedroom apartment for $800. There's 2 bedrooms for about $1,100, but housing costs here are pretty low. Now, as we approach this downtown area, you'll notice that it is pretty vacant. There's not much traffic. This is because it's Sunday. We chose to do this drive on a Sunday because, well, there's not much traffic. You can see a lot more. Well, Strathmore does close down on Sundays. There's a lot of businesses that do close down, so you'll see that parking lots are pretty bare, the roads are pretty empty, and that is why. Now, downtown is just a couple blocks, but it is kind of interesting. There's an old bank vault on the left-hand side here. There are some older buildings, but it is a very interesting downtown. There's a good bake shop on the left side. There is a card shop that does Dungeons and Dragons, Magic the Gathering. It's called Hobbs Hobby. Very good little shop. There's also a little movie theater as well that screens 1 or 2 movies depending on the week or the weekend. There are some bars located here, but there's also city amenities. As you can see, there's some new buildings that have sprung up over the couple years that really help out the community. Now, Strathmore has 11 schools, including a high school, and it even has a hospital. It has all the amenities you would kind of expect: grocery stores, hardware stores, a Walmart, with a lot of commercial businesses under construction. There is a lot of job opportunities in this small community. And with the announcement of a large aircraft manufacturing plant moving near Strathmore, job opportunities will probably increase significantly. That means that housing will probably go up and rental costs will probably go up. So if you want to check out Strathmore, you might want to get in here early before people start to figure out this little hidden gem. Now, many people live in Strathmore, but they commute to Calgary. They have a job in Calgary and they drive the 30, 40 minutes to their job and back. Sometimes that drive seems a little bit longer, but at least you're not stuck in traffic. You're just driving down the highway. Now we're going to go through some residential areas. We're going to see kind of the layout of Strathmore because Strathmore has a whole bunch of different subdivisions. The average age in Strathmore is about 40 years of age. So there is an older community here, but a lot of younger people are actually moving in. Now we're heading into this downtown area from the reverse side. So you can see each side as you kind of approach. You can see that it kind of feels historic in a way, but there's a lot of development here. You can see that everything is kind of clean. Now, this is the spring month, so you'll see a lot of road dirt, road gravel, but that all gets cleaned up. This downtown area in the summer is immaculate. It's very clean. Now, a lot of people complain about the crime in Alberta, which is a problem. Now, Strathmore, the violent crime rate is actually going down. The crime that we see in Strathmore is basically property crime and theft and some vandalism. Now, this is because a lot of the properties here around this community are rural. So it gives an opportunity for criminals to kind of sneak into a property, steal something, and return out with it. Now, basic crime is pretty low, though. You're probably not going to face any problems in this small community. There has been a little bit of drug activity that's been going on in recent years. So the RCMP in this area have kind of focused in on this and are trying to help with the addiction problems that we see across the country. Now, as we loop around, we're going to go to the backside of downtown. You'll see that there's even more businesses here. And again, it's nice and clean, nice and quiet. Now, as we approach the next intersection, there is a pretty cool kind of antique shop on the right hand side. It doubles as a pawn shop as well. There's some unique items in there at affordable rates. Now, there's also a little diner that's in this corner area as well that is pretty good. Now, what you see ahead of you is the park. This is kind of the main city park. It kind of wraps around a little lake area or a water feature. There is a splash pad for children. There's some really good walkways around Strathmore. So if you're in the biking, kind of walking around, hiking, walking the dog, there's lots of opportunities for that. Now we are headed back towards Highway 1. So we're going south in this direction. Now, Highway 1 obviously has all the amenities. There's a Walmart there, there's grocery stores, there's all kinds of fast food things. So we're going to see that as well. Now, if you are thinking about moving to Strathmore, one of the things to consider is the weather. Now, Alberta does get some pretty brutal weather, especially in the winter months. So, Strathmore is kind of on this highway route. The highway usually is cleared pretty good, but Strathmore has been having a lot of troubles clearing out the snow on the regular roads. It doesn't seem like they're putting a lot of money into their budget to clear this out. There's a lot of ice, a lot of snow. So if you do decide to move this area, I highly recommend an all-wheel drive vehicle, a 4x4 vehicle, SUV, something that's a little bit higher that's going to get through that snowfall. Now, as we head towards this east part of the city, you'll notice that the houses kind of changed. They're in kind of built in the 2000s to 2015 in this range. And these houses are pretty large. They got big, huge backyards, massive garages. There's a lot of construction that's happening around Strathmore. A lot of residential areas, but a lot of commercial is being built up too. So we'll probably turn in here, take a look at what we have for kind of like this mid-range house. Now these houses are quite expensive. They're in this downtown area, a little bit closer to everything. They usually run in the 450 to $500,000 range, which is pretty pricey. But these houses are immaculate and it's a really good neighborhood. Now, directly across from us, we see some townhouses, some multifamily houses. Those ones are a little bit cheaper. You can actually get a pretty good deal on those. They usually have a park involved and some maintenance fees that you have to pay as well. Now we are reaching near the end of Strathmore on the eastern side. You'll notice these houses are pretty new. This is kind of on the extent, but off to the left here, there are a huge a number of houses being developed. These are brand new, big houses. I don't think these ones are going to be quite as affordable as some of the other houses, but you'll notice this side of Strathmore is stretching out. This is the extent of it. But on the left side, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of new businesses, commercial units being built up as well. Now, we expect Strathmore to grow about 6% per year. That is pretty significant for a small community. So, with that in mind, you got to realize that even though this is a small community, the population is rising quite quickly. And with that comes a higher cost of living. So right now it is pretty cheap. It is pretty desirable to live in this little city or this little town, I should say, just off the highway into this area, really close to Calgary. Now, this is back on the Trans Canada Highway, Highway 1, as we're going west towards Calgary. So we just kind of did this really big loop. You'll see that there's grocery stores, Walmarts, hotels, gas stations, a whole bunch of fast food on this area as well. Now, what you'll notice though is if you stop at like an A&W or a McDonald's or the hardware store, you'll notice that the people here have a more friendly attitude. This Western hospitality is pretty evident in this small town. Now, this road does get pretty heavily trafficked. It's Highway 1, so there are a lot of truck activities here. So, if you don't like the truck noise, you'd probably want to live a little bit further in town. So, we're just looping back right where we kind of started, where we made that first left hand turn to go to that downtown area. But we're going to go past it. We're going to go north. We're going to go into kind of the older sections, kind of the newer sections of Strathmore, just to get a feel of the different types of neighborhoods here. Now, there are red light cameras, so you got to watch your speed. You got to make sure that you stop at the intersections when the light turns red. It is good for safety, but there are also some really vigilant RCMP officers in this area. If you're speeding, if you're doing any traffic violations, they will stop you, and they don't usually give you a break. So, best to keep care. Now you'll notice there was that one house for sale on the right side. There is a limited inventory of houses right now. The demand has really gone up, so houses that are put up for sale usually sell pretty quickly. In the past, it took weeks, maybe a month to sell your house. Nowadays, it could take days. So if you're planning on moving to this area or checking this area out, you might want to kind of scout ahead, get a feel for what is available. Now, there are mobile home parks in this area. Most of them are adult oriented, so you have to be 18 or above, or even 65 and above in some areas. But these are very safe. The prices are relatively high, though, for the rental costs in these areas. So it really depends on your lifestyle if you'd like to live in a mobile home park and have that safety and security of your neighbors being that close. There are a couple golf courses nearby, some driving ranges, but you'll notice there's that really long pathway on the right side that people are walking along, skateboarding, kind of having enjoying this kind of spring weather that we're experiencing. Now you'll see a lot of empty spaces like that big huge space on the left and the right and then another little community. Strathmore is kind of weird that way. There's these little communities that kind of just extend out in these different developments, which is kind of interesting because we don't know what's going to be in between there. So you'll see on the left hand side here there's a huge housing community and then it kind of just opens up. There's farmers fields. There's a rodeo on the right hand side. There's an agricultural area. So even though you're in this town, it does feel small, but it does feel open. It feels like, you know what, you could take any of these roads, drive your car, and get to a different location pretty quickly. So we'll just turn in here just to kind of see this little neighborhood. Now this is a little bit of an older neighborhood. You can see by the houses, the housing style, the bigger front yards that this was probably built in the 2000s, maybe in the 1990s as well. But again, all these houses, all these properties, very clean, very safe. We'll just turn around here. Now, a lot of the houses, as you can see on the right hand side here, have recreational vehicles with them trailers, motorhomes, pop up tent campers. That's because, well, the mountains are pretty close. And if you're only 35, 40 minutes from Calgary, those mountain areas that you want to explore are going to be pretty close. All you do is hop on the highway, take the ring road, and off you go to Banff, Lake Louise, these areas. Now, you also have the opportunity to explore Saskatchewan from this area because the border is not too far away. You can go north towards Drumheller, Edmonton, or south into some really rural areas. A lot of good fishing around this area. Now we're going to take a left here and we're going to pass by the high school and see a different neighborhood that's in the north part of Strathmore. So you can see Strathmore kind of has a ring road that goes right around it. This kind of highway system in a small town highway sense. That kind of just loops around Strathmore, kind of giving you easy access to everything. You're not going to get stuck in a traffic jam here. Now we'll just pull into this other residential area, just off here, going south once more. You notice these are kind of older houses. These ones are from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Kind of mixed up. A lot of these properties were kind of developed on rural property. So the housing was kind of built 10 houses at a time, and then a couple years went by, and then a couple more houses were built. So you'll see this kind of stretch of different types of housing. We'll just keep looping back in and out of these little neighborhoods just to show you the kind of the residential areas that we do have. But one thing you notice is all the yards are kept, all the driveways are clean, the trees are trimmed, the bushes are trimmed, everything is kind of set properly in this area. People really do take care of their properties. We'll just make a left here. There's a little park in this area. It's kind of a birth park. That's what they call it. They kind of had some landscaping to do, so they put up a whole bunch of trees, let them grow in this area, and built a little community around this park. So this little community is actually one of the cheapest to find a house in. It's called Green Meadows, and all these houses here, yeah, they might be a little bit older. They might be from the 80s or the 90s, but this community is really kind of coming about. A lot of people are fixing up these houses, taking care of them, obviously. There's a nice little park around it, and the cost of living is so cheap that it kind of makes sense to find a spot like this, develop it, and then move on to maybe something else in the area. But this is a perfect spot to kind of raise a family in this area because you got parks, you got schools, you got an easy commute to work, and you got a high level of living in this area. Now we're just going to make our way through this little area, and that'll be the end of the video, just to kind of show you what Strathmore's all about. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it useful, please consider giving us a like or a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, comment below. We'd like to hear from you, what you think about Strathmore. If you have any questions about Strathmore, we'll be definitely checking those comments and responding to them. So thank you very much for coming on board, checking out Strathmore. In a future video, we'll kind of go in depth about Strathmore living a little bit more, but this kind of gives you an idea of what it's all about. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.